Good people, what is going on? Another episode of All Book Podcast. I'm your host Desmond. Nice Arnold Palmer. Still rolling with the dry January. So, anywho, got a couple things I want to talk about, and it's about 8 p.m. on Sunday, January 12th. So I think the Packers Eagles game is, if it's not done, it's going to be over here pretty soon. Jordan Love wasn't he was just kind of so not great. I text a friend that I feel like the now granted it was just 1 year ago, but that Dallas game was a long time ago, and this season has been very up and down for him, for someone who has been talked about as if he is one of the greats in today's game. So that's a little interesting, but got a couple things I want to talk about. First and foremost is the top five quarterback, Justin Herbert. He had an abysmal game in their playoff game against the Texans. The game was there for the taking, especially early on in that game and in the first half. But Herbert just threw four interceptions. I know one of them did go off of the receiver's hands. I think two of them, but he also had two other really bad interceptions. And for some strange reason, there's there's Justin Herbert might be talked about in a more unique way than any quarterback in the NFL, because on one hand, when you're listing like the elites and the greats of the great, his name always seems to fall in there, but no one really dives deep into it on if truly he belongs there, because Justin Herbert, this isn't his first or second year in the NFL. He's been here for a while. The talent aspect of it is different than the production, because the talent is there. You see him throw the ball, it looks different than anyone else throwing the football. I mean, he can throw it seemingly the length of the football field, but that's not what playing quarterback in the NFL is all about. I mean, there was, the story of, if you remember, Kyle Bowler years ago, who was drafted by the Baltimore Ravens, if I'm not mistaken, but they said he could get on or on both knees on the 50-yard line, could throw the ball through the uprights. I mean, it's unreal as far as the arm strength, but he was an awful quarterback. So the arm strength, the talent, those types of things, like that's only going to get you so far before you've got to play the quarterback position in a way that you elevate your teammates. And there just seems to be, like, early, I mean, obviously that game was just yesterday, but I've already seen multiple videos of, it's not his fault. And well, this team was so bad last year. And with the team being bad last year, that is correct. That team was very bad last year. But this also isn't last year's team. I mean, this is the same team that won 10, 11 games this season. Like, the only part of last year's team being bad that matters is just, I mean, your starting point. Like, even in game one, it's a different team because you get the NFL draft, you get free agency, you guys get cut, traded, all that good stuff. So they're not the same team that they were last year. And ideally, Justin Herbert's not the same quarterback he was last year. Ideally, he'd be better this year. And I just don't understand why it's so difficult just to say, yeah, until you can have the playoff success, like we can't call you an elite quarterback. And that's what we've done for every other elite quarterback in the NFL. You don't get to have your name in the Burrow, Mahomes, Josh Allen, like that type of conversation. You don't get there without playing well in the playoffs. Even if you want to jump on Lamar Jackson, who had a terrific game against the Steelers, but even before that game, there was a lot of kind of he had a lot of backlash as far as not having the playoff success. And I can understand that, but he didn't have meltdowns. I mean, Justin Herbert had a full off meltdown yesterday. He was under 50% completion percentage, threw four interceptions. He had the one throw to McConkey, and who McConkey's terrific, But outside of that, he was just flat out awful. And if this were Lamar Jackson, we'd be going. I couldn't imagine there'd be people who want him kicked out of the NFL. So I just don't understand why it's so difficult to look at a guy's performance and just say, yeah, that was god awful. But instead, it's like, well, who do you compare him to the other teams? And well, look what this team did last year, and this is the worst that they're ever going to be. I don't care, and I don't want all those excuses. We don't give those excuses to any other quarterback that is in that elite category. When Josh Allen doesn't get it done, he just doesn't get it done. It doesn't have anything to do with what the team did last year and all these other excuses. They were just bad. Justin Herbert was bad. And I don't really want to hear the he's a top five, he's in a top five quarterback as far as the rankings go. You can't be elite if you can't play well in the playoffs. It's very simple. That Trevor Lawrence, the Jags game a couple years ago, that was awful. You were up 27-0 and you end up losing that football game. Cannot happen. That doesn't happen to elite quarterbacks. It just doesn't. The portion, a part of that elite tag is that you elevate your team and you elevate the guys that's on your team. You're a force multiplier. You take whatever we've got and I'm going to boost it. I'm going to make if this guy was rated let's use Madden ratings. If this guy's an 80, when he plays with me, he's an 82 or an 85. I'm going to make him better. I'm going to put him in better spots than if it were someone else. And he's just not doing that. And I don't understand why we like to just pick and choose guys that if they play poorly, we jump on them. I mean, Dak Prescott was getting now granted, and I also think it was deserved, and I don't think Dak's an elite quarterback. But the point is, in that game last year against the Packers, Dak was getting destroyed, rightfully so. He played poorly. All I'm saying is keep the same energy with Herbert. That's it. I don't think that's unfair. I don't know Justin Herbert personally. Don't care. If you play poorly, yeah, that was awful, man. You got to get it together. And I heard that. Well, he's this is as bad as his receiving core is going to be. I'm not certain of that. I would say Ladd McConkey is going to be there for a long time. That dude is terrific. He's not the biggest, but he clearly is a really good receiver. He's what he did this year and even in yesterday's game. I mean, if there's a defense out there, he's just going to tear it up. And that's exactly what he did when he was at Georgia, playing in the SEC. The dude was terrific. So he's awesome. Quentin Johnson, not awesome by any stretch, but my point is if you've looked at any Jim Harbaugh team, they have rarely ever invested high capital or free agent dollars to the wide receiver position. I want to say the highest would probably be Crabtree in San Francisco. And I would have to go back to see if and I don't think they drafted Crabtree. Where did he get drafted to? I think it was the Niners. He's played with a couple different teams, but I'm just not sure that they're gonna to invest in wide receivers. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, Jim Harbaugh clearly has done a terrific job as far as building teams and his success and his performance. But I mean, I don't know if I had to guess their first round draft pick could probably be in the trenches, D lineman, possibly an O lineman, maybe a running back. I mean, I don't see them, going to get a wide receiver in the first round. So this might be the best that he's got, but it just I just don't understand how we're just going to have just so many excuses for Justin Herbert. Terrific talent, but you've got to be able to get it done in the playoffs. And it's funny, I as being a Lions fan, I look at a guy like Matt Stafford, who, big arm, and Stafford obviously went to the playoffs a lot less frequent than what Herbert has done, but it was kind of the same thing. Like just having a big arm is just not enough. You've got to take it to the next level. You've got to make the throws. You've got to make the critical throws. You've got to make them when they matter. The third down throws are really big. And the fourth quarter throws are really big. In this game, I mean, fourth quarter throws weren't that big because they were down so much. I mean, you only scored 12 points in the game, so it yeah, I just think the discourse should be just what it is. He played awful in the game, and we could say that, and that's football. That's kind of what it is. So is what it is. Uh, Want to talk about George Pickens in the Steelers game. So as you know, obviously the Ravens they beat the Steelers. It was a 14-point game. It wasn't even that close. It was weird. Just basically when the Steelers needed to score, they couldn't. And George Pickens was asked about the just basically progress with the offense, and he said he's seen it progress in his years that he's been there. And they asked if he was optimistic in the about the offense, and he said no. Uh, also saw a report that George Pickens is potentially in line for a deal, roughly about 27-28 million dollars per year, as far as a long-term extension. If I were running the Steelers, if I were the GM, and which I'm not sure if Tomlin has, I believe he's got some say in it. Obviously, he's a legendary coach, but I don't think he's like picking the draft picks. Uh, but there's not a chance. There's not a chance that I would give George Pickens a $27 million per year extension for whatever it'd be 4 years, $100 million extension. Not a chance. With the immaturity that he continues to display, I cannot. I can't get in that business. The tough part is randomly. I actually saw George Pickens. He went to school in Alabama. I don't remember what school it was. If I was watching Hoover or if Hoover was playing against George Pickens' team. But anyway, it was one of those before the football season, before college football really kicks off. Sometimes on like ESPN, ESPN2, they'll have like some of the bigger high schools in like Alabama, Florida will play on like those big networks. And I just happened to randomly watch some years ago, but it was Pickens, I think, senior year, and the dude was terrific. I'm like, man, what's the deal with this kid? And blah blah blah. He ends up going to Georgia, and with Pickens, it just always has seemed in his time at Georgia. Clearly, he was super talented. He did, have an injury that he was able to come back from, but he had the game against Georgia Tech where he's getting into a fight, swinging, punching a guy. They're kind of going back and forth, and now with the Steelers, there's the game against Kansas City where I mean it's a crunch time play, and he basically just doesn't run a route. He just kind of quits on it. It's just a lot of immaturity with him that I'm just not going, because to me what it feels like is a rinse and repeat of the Antonio Brown scenario. And it's funny because Ryan Clark had mentioned, he was obviously there with the Steelers when they were getting ready to sign Antonio Brown to an extension. And he basically said, if you guys give this guy a bunch of money, he's going to it's not going to be good, basically, because it gives guys power. It gives guys that kind of that sense of entitlement because they have all this money and they know at that point, oh, I'm untouchable for at least a bit, because usually with those extensions, there's usually a big chunk of guaranteed money or signing bonus that's paid up front. So, it hurts the team if they were to look to trade you, cut you, whatever the case may be. And I just wouldn't do it. I would not. He's super talented, and I just couldn't do it. And I understand because with Pittsburgh, they need all the weapons they can get. Najee Harris is I believe, a true free agent now that their season's done. I don't think they picked up his fifth-year option, so they do need help. But my thought would be is if George Pickens is that valuable, if the market says he's due $27-28 million per year, then I would trade him for whatever, second round, first rounder. I have no idea what his value would be. If it's 27 million, call it two. Can I get a two? Get 2, 3, something like that for him? But I can't do that. because he just leaves a lot to be desired in the effort, in the maturity, and that type of contract is just. Ugh, I mean, that's only 9 million away from what Justin Jefferson is making. Like, and I get it. There's guarantees per year averages, all that good stuff. Like, I get that, but I just couldn't do it. There's no way. Um, but that's just me. Curious on your thoughts. If you've made it this far, please go ahead and hit that like and subscribe. We'll greatly appreciate it. That is it for me. Peace.